How you doing? It's Ronnie Santmeyer again. I've got a couple people asking me, some friends asked me this recently, and then I just posted a video the other day. This user right here asked me if I would make a tutorial on how I mix vocals in like VoiceOver in DaVinci. I don't know that I'm an expert on that, but I can show what I do in my videos, and I slightly change it from time to time. I'm actually now, I used to record my vocals, I'm using a Shure lav mic going into an Apollo, into OBS, and that's how I used to do it. But I would use plugins, and I find that, I don't know, I just sometimes, it sounded too processed. And then I like the sound actually just going raw with the mic into a Tascam SD recorder. I have the, right here, I'll show it to you. So I use this DR60 Mark II, but lately I decided to start running my microphone into it, and the quality of that mic pre, I mean, it's no Neve or anything, you know, for recording, but for just doing voiceover and stuff, it's pretty simple, but it sounds good as a starting point to be able to manipulate later in the box. Anyway, I'm going straight to the Tascam for just my vocal. Any audio that I do on my DAW is generally going straight, I have it routed using loopback, going straight to OBS for it to record the audio there. I don't have the vocal. I do use the talkback on my Apollo just to slate in OBS to get things locked up for later. But the playback just comes straight out of my software. So if I'm using DaVinci, it's going straight out to the screen. And I don't do much DaVinci screen grabbing stuff because I barely know what I'm doing in DaVinci. But my newest video that I posted the other day was this one here. Cool, it's a free update. It's called SSL 360 Link. And I'll show basically, we're in the edit window here now. And I'll go over to the Fairlight section. And let's see, we're on this first vocal where I'm talking. It allows you to use your UC1 controller to. Now, if I just turn my vocal, this is on this intro voiceover. If I just take all the plugins off, it allows you to use your UC1 controller to control third-party plugins like waves. It's not a huge difference. I'm just kind of beefing it up. So let me turn each one of these off and show you what I'm doing. So my raw vocal, just the Shure lav mic going straight into the mic pre of this Tascam, me just taking that SD card, putting it into my Mac Studio, importing it in, and what you see here, console one that I used to have. Actually, let me solo it without that music. Console one that I used to have. I have not used the newest console one, so maybe that it got its latency. It's got a little background noise. I know a lot of guys are using shotgun mics, and I thought about buying a fancy Sennheiser shotgun like everybody else uses, but I have a tendency, and I'm too much of a scatterbrain when I'm doing this stuff. I can't stay directly looking to camera focus, especially when I was doing, you know, stuff showing the rack or the gear. You're constantly turning your head around. Then I had some other pencil mics I use for overheads and things. I set them up, and that seemed to work okay a little bit, but they still didn't seem to follow me as well as having a lav just clipped on me so I can move around. It just seems easier for me. So let's start with what I usually do in the beginning is just kind of clean up the stuff a little bit. So let me turn all this stuff off. They didn't map the compressor section, so if I put this on now, they didn't map the I hate hearing my voice, by the way, so I'm sure all the people have the same problem. Besides looking at myself on camera for too long is annoying, but hearing myself is annoying. You'll see I mapped the LA2As and the LA3As to the channel strip compressor network. So that's just cleaned up the bottom. You really don't hear much. It's just taking rumble away, especially if I hit the desk or something, and I got that set to like 68 Hertz. You'll see I mapped. And then I did this other dip here. It's not super noticeable, but it was bugging me. Now also, to point all this out, let me jump over here to the main bus out. I have a limiter on the whole thing that I generally do to get my volume up to levels for, you know, social media stuff like YouTube. But I didn't do this in my studio where I'm currently at. I did this video editing at home. I took my Mac Studio home with me, just did it on that. And I'm using SonarWorks, which is off. But when I was editing this, I was wearing my Audio-Technica headphones, so I was using this to correct things. So all my judgment of what I'm hearing in these voiceovers are a lot of times with my headphones on, not with my studio monitors on, right, like I have right now. You'll see I mapped the LA2A, but this area was bugging me. like you'll see I map the LA2As and LA3As to the channel strip compressor, and it works. So I just dipped that a little bit. That's around 215 hertz. Then I wanted to give a little more chest to my voice, you know, the old radio thing, since I don't sound like I have a good radio voice. Well, like you'll see I map the LA2As and LA3As to the channel strip compressor, and it works fine. But I think it'd be neat if that, so like a little over 3 dB at 105 hertz. Well, like you'll see, because then stuff like an LA2A or LA3 and then they cleaned up this area a little bit, 825 hertz. Because then stuff like an LA2A or LA3, which is that kind of voice like this, I can't stand on certain mics. Because then just the lav and the way it's sitting underneath your neck. Because then stuff like an LA2A or LA3 that actually physically takes too much away. So just a little dip. And then I added a little bit of presence here in a wider Q at 4.5K. Because then stuff like an LA2A or LA3 that actually physically has, it's just adding a little lift. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass. And then I add a little bit more top at 6.3, it looks like. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. So I was worried you weren't just a tiny bit, just a dB. Plugins, you know, on a source. And then I usually like to compress afterwards, and I don't always use this, but I use this for this time. Funny, the little GUI of this plugin actually looks different than it does in like Reaper or Luna. Let me turn this sidechain off. I used it this time because I wanted the sidechain. In the past, a lot of times I've used like Wave C4. I've even used Fabfilter so I could multi-band compress, you know, areas. That thing works great. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. So I was worried you weren't going to be able to manipulate a little bit. Now watch over here, the gain reduction. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. So I was worried you weren't going to be able to manipulate each. It's subtle, but I got a little more in this 510 hertz that I got boosted. It's just telling that compressor to grab that area more to take out that kind of boxiness at 500 hertz. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. So that's off, I'll pop it in. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. So it's, again, subtle. And then I use Soothe afterwards, and it had a preset of softer vocal treble, but I tweaked it a bunch in there, and I'll kick this on. And this is just meant to grab sibilance and like a lot of all the teeth smacking stuff when I say certain things. Plugins, you know, on a source, whether it's a vocal or bass guitar or something. Now, let me real quick, well, I guess I can stay on this. When you put the plugin in, it's called SSL's 360 link. Now without that, it's called SSL's 360 link. It's called SSL's 360 link. But this area here, you can see it's pulling that down. It's moving a little sluggish because I'm running this plus OBS at the same time on the computer. It's called SSL's 360 link. It allows you to use your UC1 control. Sometimes I follow this up with a Pultec, and I thought it was funny today because they were both turned on. If you notice on both these channels, they're highlighted like they're on. But I probably threw them on there because I probably did one of these vocals and just copied the plugins over because it was all the same day, same microphone clipped to me. I just have them on different tracks for my intro and the dialogue during the, let me jump to that a second. Yeah, like here where I'm talking. Now in here, if you notice also, all this automation that's going on, this is me dipping some of the noise in between my talking just to clean things up because I'm picky that way, I guess. Let me solo that. So we are on this channel now. So the funny thing was, I use this sometimes to add clarity and presence, but I actually surprised myself today because I think I put this on, was intending to use it like I always do. And what happens, I heard something or I saw something during the editing and I went back and treated that and just, my brain blocked out, hey, you're supposed to go back and fix that Pultec. So it was on, but it wasn't, there's no settings on it. So I guess I didn't need it. It must have not bugged me enough. So once again, you know, probably don't need as many plugins as we tend to stack on things anyway. But so if a vocal tends to be a little cloudy and dark, sometimes what I'll do is I'll either hit 16 or 12K, which is March 7th. Open in a second. But the 360 link, as you see, it's default. A little too crispy up there. So I'll just boost a little bit sometimes.
But the 360 link,
and then I usually put this at 10 or 5, but mostly 10, and I'll attenuate it down to take some of it off.
But the 360 link, as you see, it's defaulted to just having volume control signal.
And you can get away with making vocals a lot darker in a voiceover. I think nowadays, especially with YouTube, they sound better a little darker because people are listening to it on iPhones, which are, thin sounding, or iPad. I think it feels better if you add a little more bottom and not so much top on a voiceover, because again, they're watching it on a phone. But if you needed to boost, this is what I would do.
But the 360 link, as you see, it's defaulted to just having volume control signal passes through here.
It might sound better with it on right now. I mean, again, in the moment when I had the headphones on, Sound ID was on, and this thing's gonna keep bugging me. Sound ID was on, and I was making my judgments from that. It's, I guess I didn't need it because I had it off, so I'm gonna leave it off.
Open in a second. But the 360 link,
and then when you put the music, and that's why I put a bed underneath of it for now, just to, I just had this little bit of bed going. And on that, I actually just put the Oxford on. So I just darken this top just a tiny bit to make just to take that drum sound out underneath my voice some. And then when you blend them together,
open in a second.
Let me do this. Here's the limiter that's on the whole thing.
Open in a second. But the 360 link, as you see, it's defaulted to just having volume control signal passes through here, but you can.
So I'm not crushing it, making it incredibly loud. Just very subtle things, basically. So, I mean, really, I found, like, when I was tracking this mic through the Apollo and trying to put plugins on it on the UA console and printing that sound, because I just was thinking, I'll try to get things the way I want so they're more finished sounding. I had more problems doing it that way because I just wanted to tweak more later. I find it better just to get a nice sounding mic, go into something clean, even if like this Tascam unit, record it that way, dump it in. Also, the cool thing about the Tascam is, and a lot of SD recorders do this, it'll record your normal vocal settings, your normal levels, and it'll record another vocal underneath several dB lower, like a safety thing. So if I clapped or made a loud bursty noise in my vocal and it was gonna mess up a spot, you can grab that other audio file, put it in its place and raise the volume to match, so it's kind of like a safe backup of your recording. That is a plus. And then I just run the signal out to my camera, so I could use it, but I still find the microphone going to the SD recorder, you taking that card out and put it in your computer, that file sounds better than going into the SD recorder for the mic pre and then the little 1/8" plug going into your camera. Going through that little headphone out, or it's not a headphone out, but it's a line out on that Tascam into the camera. It might be the camera's input. It sounds better than using the mic on the camera or even an external mic hooked to the camera, but it still doesn't sound as good as just taking the file directly off the Tascam. So that's what I end up doing. I just run a line to the camera just so my camera audio is already in sync with the SD card. And I know it locks up, so when I zoom in to do my hand clap for a slate, I can see it quickly, and OBS is rolling, and so I can lock that up with the talkback. That's why I turn the talkback on, I do the slate, turn it off, do my video thing, and in the end I can just lock up and get that slate point. So hopefully I covered how I'm tweaking these vocals a little bit. And it does change from time to time, because if my mic sounds different and I did something different, I don't have a huge studio. I used to have a warehouse studio and those days are done. So I can't leave all my stuff set up all the time if I'm doing sessions or mixing or whatever. And sometimes I've been taking a long time in between videos. So setting everything back up again and remembering exactly what you did, and it's different, and I hear things different every day. So sometimes I listen to my mic and I might treat it differently, but the gist of what I showed you is kind of what I aim for and what I go for, and people have been saying they like it. I hate everything I do usually, so I'm glad people are liking it. I really appreciate any comments. I'm trying to get some more feedback on the channel to, help me get ideas of what content to even film. So, and I appreciate the new subscribers that I got on this last video and people commenting on it. So thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed this, and catch you next time. See ya.